Hi, I'm Jonathan from Your Why, and welcome to Be Well. I'm honored to bring you these conversations with leaders in their field related to living mindfully. Today's topic is the Bystander Challenge. We have our guest is Lisa Maxwell, Director of the Training Institute at the National Conflict Resolution Center. Lisa comes to us with extensive experience in mediating and resolving workplace disputes, interpersonal disputes, and complex issues. She's also has written and published the book, The Exchange, a bold and proven approach to resolving workplace conflict. Lisa, welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Hello, very nice to meet you.
As I think about Be Well and in our conversations on mindfulness, I think about being mindful means to be present, aware in a given moment. And so part of being present and aware is aware of our surrounding, who's around us and what's going on in that particular moment in time. And so today we get the opportunity to look at how we can be an active bystander and, if need be, help mediate or diffuse particular situations that may be charged. So, Lisa, welcome. Thank you for being with us. And I will start off with just if you'll share a little bit maybe about the National Conflict Resolution Center and the work that you're doing there.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. We are a full service center. We provide mediation services for the community at no cost. We also, at the Training Institute in which I work, we provide a lot of different kinds of workshops, really centered on how we can communicate more effectively, how we can be more respectful in our communication with others, mediation training, and really the art of inclusive communication. And then the Bystander Challenge we created several years ago to really help people be able to step up when they encounter disrespectful behavior.
It seems to be more timely in terms of us as bystanders and hopefully citizens in looking out for our community. I was on a panel recently, and the discussion was anti-Asian racism. And the particular person that was my guest was talking about how when she was on a subway, she experienced in that particular moment someone who is putting them in the position where they're they're doing racist slurs towards them. And what she found is that it was one thing to have that person acting in such a way towards her and harassing her in that manner. And yet it was almost a compounding experience that there was no one on that subway that intervened, no one that said anything. And so for her, it was that compounding impact of that experience versus if someone had intervened, if she felt like she had support beyond the person that was harassing her, how that could have made a significant difference. And so I wonder, just as we start, what prevents us as a bystander from speaking up?
Well, let me just first comment on the story that you shared. The
Please.
reality is that in the research that I did to find out more about people's experiences feeling harassed in their work environments or in public situations, and when I did that research, I had such a diversity of people that I interviewed to find out what their experience was like. And every single one of them said, of course, the situation was horrific for them that they experienced. But even worse than that was the fact that no one intervened. No one said anything. So just to highlight your story, this is not unique to her experience. The reality is this is the main pain, I would say, people who have had this experience, that's the main concern they have, is like, one, to have someone to do that. Sometimes it's a coworker who likes to joke around, and that joking goes too far. It becomes inappropriate. It disrespects some aspect of their identity. And so in these situations, I mean, when you think about a public place, people have reasonable concerns about their own safety, right? In your workplace, you have a very different relationship. So you have more of an impetus to step up. Now, in the situations in which there is public situations, you may not want to say something directly to the person that's doing that harassment, microaggressions, whatever that, where that continuum that is, but you can step up to support the person that's being harassed, talking to them. Can I walk with you? Do something to distract in some way. Now, what prevents people? I think in public places, Jonathan, what we're going to see is that it's mostly concerns about their personal safety, which is understandable. We do want to do that. So that's why I suggest in those public places, maybe not talking to the person doing it, but focusing your attention on the person that is being harmed. In the workplace, the problem that we encounter is there's power dynamics. There's concerns about your own, are they going to start harassing me? Are they going to start making microaggressions about my identity? They have worries about hurting the feelings of the person that's, maybe when we're talking about harassment, that's pretty far over. And then violence goes after that. But usually these situations starts with microaggressions where someone is minimizing someone's identity, somehow making fun of them, or speaking in disparaging ways, or asking questions that are inappropriate. That's where it usually starts in the workplace. So people have fears around that.
So I know, I think we're all aware that there's an increase in acts of racism and harassment in this way. And so there's also greater awareness around this in terms of what we can do. So I really like the trainings that you do and the education you provide in terms of, as a bystander, how we can intervene. I heard you speak to the concern about personal safety and whether it'll be turned towards us, because if they're acting this way to this person. I also wonder just about this group think, in the sense of somebody else will intervene, somebody else will do something. Therefore, I don't need to step up, and so I wonder about that as well. If that is something that inhibits us from taking action.
Yeah, I mean, the three ineffective responses that bystanders make, there are three ineffective responses. One is avoiding, thinking someone else should do it. I'm going to stay in my lane. It's not my problem. That avoiding really speaks to this idea that you talk to the person who had experienced that. Everybody avoided it, right? The other thing that can happen, I think this happens a lot in the workplace, and it's extremely ineffective, is if, let's say you have someone that's really good at their job. Oftentimes managers will say, just put up with her. She's good at her job. And that is a horrible thing to do, because basically you're saying her being good at her job, her success in that piece of her job is more important than your psychological safety. And that's a horrible thing to do to employees. The other thing people do is attack. And attacking is where we aggressively tell them to bug off, to, or worse. And the problem with that, it tends to escalate the situation. Of course, in public setting, that is going to make it so you're less safe when you attack. In the workplace setting or in community setting, when you do that, you really break down your relationship with that person. We like to think everybody can make mistakes. Everybody, when they're not actually harassing, all that before, those jokes that are inappropriate, that racist comment that is kind of based out of ignorance, anybody can do that. So we want to step in a way that still maintains relationship, shows respect, but also states our values and how these values are important in upstander action.
So I like where you led me into something of interest. I know in some of your writing, you speak about our value system, our personal value system, and that can come into play in terms of whether we intervene or how we intervene. So share, how do one's values come to play in this scenario?
Well, Jonathan, I'm really glad you asked about that. When I first developed a bystander training, it was for the Navy. And having worked with the military a lot, I know that military members, their values are very important to them. They are people that really live with integrity. And so I started researching what place values have in bystander action. And the research really indicates very clearly that when people are motivated to becoming an upstander, even at risk to themselves, they will do it because of their moral convictions. And so think about your own values and think about what one, why is this important to me? And how would it show up in my actions as an upstander? For example, for me, one thing that's really important is equity and fairness to human beings on our planet. And so that makes me become an upstander because I feel like someone's being treated in an unequitable way or disrespectful way. I want to step up because I want to live my values. And the research really shows those are the people that become upstanders, those people who understand their own values and connect those values to their actions. And so we really encourage people when they want to think about it, because our fears will win. That's the reality of human beings. Our fears will win. But if we think about not the fears, but who we are as a person, what are our values? What do we stand for? That's what will make us act.
I like the term upstander. That's a nice way of shifting the energy and really empowering us in particular situations. So values come to play. Are there other conditions that support that upstander in voicing concerns and stepping in?
Well, Jonathan, you asked a really important question or made a really important comment earlier. You said, what about the group think, right? And the group think can go negative. The group think can also go positive. What we like to encourage is for groups of people, communities, the YMCA, for example, or church groups or workplaces, we like for them to think about how do we call people in, not call people out? And what we mean by that, as a group, how do we encourage our group to live our values? If we find someone in our group that has said something that we perceive to be disrespectful of someone else, we're only speaking for ourselves. We're not speaking for the person that was harmed. We're just saying that comment made me feel uncomfortable. We're not doing it in a way to attack them, to cancel culture, none of that, but to say, hey, Jonathan, the other day when we were at the lunchroom and you said that thing, I just want you to know I felt a little uncomfortable with that. And I just wondered what was going on for you, what it meant to you. And this is why it made me uncomfortable. It's very simple. And even in the moment, you can do that. If you don't mind, I'd like to share an amazing story.
Please.
The person told me this story, and when I did my interviews, he was very well accomplished. He had a Ph.D. He had worked very hard in the company he worked in, and he was promoted to the level of the executive committee. And this was a really big promotion. So he went to the first meeting. There's about a dozen people in that meeting. And he was really excited, but of course the new guy on the block, he's mostly listening in this first meeting. And the leader of this big organization made an anti-LGBTQI joke. And he was kind of taken aback. And so he's like, well, okay, I'm not going to say anything. He happened to be gay. And the next meeting, something else happened. Basically, every meeting he went to, this type of disrespect was happening to him. He knew, some people knew he was gay and they kind of like, oh, sorry, but they didn't say anything. He told me it affected him so deeply. He said, I haven't felt that way since middle school, but I didn't want to make a big deal because I was new. And he said, I started having anxiety attacks before the meeting. I almost thought I needed to quit. And then a new person was hired. And that new person, in the very first meeting he attended, this happened again, it happened every meeting, he stopped the meeting and he said, I know you're joking, but we're role models here and we have to be really careful about respecting all of our employees and how they're treated. And we want to make sure we don't do that. So anyway, back to my point a few minutes ago. So he made a direct statement in the moment. The person that told me this story said, I have no idea if they talked about it later. All I know is that it never happened again. And I felt welcome again. I felt like I could contribute. And that those horrible days of middle school when this happened to me, I never saw them again. And I think that was really compelling to me about how you can do it in a way that doesn't turn it into a big attack, but you get your point and your values across.
That's a powerful example. And what I appreciate is the whole idea of it creates awareness where someone may be ignorant, naive, blind. So you're raising awareness. It also sets a boundary. And the way you provided that example, it didn't polarize or escalate the situation. And I know you speak to particular interventions or methods of that should be explored to intervene in a particular situation. So what might those interventions be?
Well, I have kind of mentioned a couple of them. One is distraction. And distraction is where you somehow change the conversation, you kind of distract. This is especially helpful when you have less power. In public settings, you can distract by saying something about something that's happening. Let's say you're on a subway or on the trolley in San Diego here. You point out something outside. You say, hey, look at that. You're trying to somehow change the energy. People that are humorous use a joke to get that changed. So distraction is really best when you're worried about your own safety or you have not much power in the situation because you're not trying to command attention, right? You're just trying to get that attention distracted. Another one is direct, and direct was the example from the person that said, hey, we're role models here. And that person did it in a workplace, but you can be direct to the target of that or to the bystander or to the person responsible for that action. So a direct is a very short comment to change, to intervene. So those are in the moment. The third way that we teach is to delegate. Let's say you and I, Jonathan, know someone, we work with this person. You may come to me and say, hey, I know that you all work out together or you all do this class together. And have you noticed this? And we may decide I'm the best person to have that conversation. So delegation is also done. I'd also encourage students, young people, to delegate to someone, maybe, the teacher or someone like that, if they feel uncomfortable. The third kind of delegation is, of course, going to HR or to someone that can intervene in some way. So the last way that we really encourage, and we think it's the most healthy way at the end, maybe you'll do one of the others at first, is to have a real conversation. And not to attack the person, but really to have a conversation to clarify your own values, to point out what the issue was, to hear what they were thinking and kind of go with them. You're not trying to represent the person that was targeted, but you're trying to let them know where you stand in this particular situation, what your values are, and letting them know. You're not trying to force, you're not trying to convince, you're saying, this is where I am, this is how I perceived it, and this is what's important to me. So people in workplaces report to us that those conversations can really be good because they connect, they let their values be known, but they don't attack their colleague.
That's excellent. Anything else that we should be aware of if we observe something that would give us kind of those tools in our toolbox? You've given us some great examples, some great ideas, looking at how to dialogue with the person that's responsible. And then what about communicating how best for us to support the person that might be the target of it? Whether after.
Yeah, so one thing that targets told me was many times people want to tell them what they should have done. You should go talk to him and tell him. Well, that's just not what targets need. What targets need is you to listen and you to support what they think is the best next step. And this is the way that they are going to feel supported. And you're not trying to put something. I remember an elderly gentleman was calling all the women in the office girls. And one of the men was concerned because he wanted to be an ally and make sure this wasn't one. So the one that was especially targeted with this girl talk, he went to her and he said, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And she said, it doesn't bother me at all. And so with the target, don't presume that they feel the same way. And so you want to be real careful about that. I'm also going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to put a link we have a free bystander training that people can sign up for. And that is something we're offering to the public. So if they'd like to sign up for that, they can just go to that link.
That's fantastic. I appreciate you doing that. I really appreciate what you're doing. And so my other question would be where we can get more resources. So this is one method we could be part of that training. My assumption is also if we went to your website, the National Conflict Resolution Center, ncrconline.com that we would find. I know there's content on the Bystander Challenge there. But I really appreciate the work that you're doing and the difference that that can make in the wellness of our community. Anything, Lisa, that you want to offer just in closing? You've given us a lot of gems and a lot of tools.
Well, I will say that we have a very diverse training core. We can do the workshops in Spanish, Arabic, English, obviously, but we speak several languages and we do it in those languages. So we've even done it in Dari, which, is a great community within San Diego. We also really want to support our nonprofit agencies and other work that's being done in San Diego. So we have a wide variety of trainings that could be supportive of what you're trying to get across with your organization. So just know we're here to serve San Diego, and we're really delighted to partner with you.
Well, Lisa, thank you very much. A pleasure to have you on today and to share your wisdom and your expertise. So thank you. And
thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.